What's up guys, and welcome to yet another upgrade video for the mighty DMAX. I am really happy with how it's coming along, but seems like the list of mods is never ending. It's a rainy old day in Perth, so it's the perfect time to jump back into the garage and work on the next upgrade. So today's upgrade should be a nice and simple project, fingers crossed, and that's to get a nice UHF radio installed in the car with an antenna on the bull bar there, and also we're going to hide the control module in the cab. I'm pretty excited. I have lashed out a little bit and bought a pretty deluxe model UHF radio, one I've been wanting for a very long time, but let's jump across to the workbench and I'll show you what we've got to install. So I've gone for the GME XRS Connect UHF radio, which is this right here, and I've also gone for their Outback pack, which comes with an antenna. There's a couple of reasons why I went for this model for the DMAX. The first is that all the controls for this radio and the speaker are all built into the handpiece itself, and that means we can mount that control box somewhere completely out of sight, out of mind, and it just makes for a much neater install. The second reason is that this comes with the coolest feature that allows you to play back the last transmission you received. How many times have you been driving along and like maybe your radio's turned up and someone says something to you, you don't quite catch it? With this, instead of having to ask them to say their message again, click a button and it will replay that last transmission, which I reckon is so cool. So taking a look in this box, the first thing we get is the main unit itself, which is so compact. I've never seen a UHF radio that tiny. There it is compared to my hand, which is awesome. It's going to make for a really neat install. Underneath this cardboard flap, we get the handpiece itself, which is so cool. Check out all those controls on the front there. It's probably a bit bigger than your standard UHF radio handpiece, but you'd expect as much with all the things this handpiece can do. And then we get our 2.1 decibel black GME antenna, which I reckon looks super neat. It's gonna be interesting to see how that 2.1 goes distance-wise. I'm used to having 6.6 decibel antennas, so yeah, very keen to try that out, but I reckon it's gonna look so neat on the DMAX, and it's quite a nice compact size. Other than those main pieces, the only other bits in the box are a little bracket for that control box to mount it somewhere out of the way, some of your standard wiring, so power wire for the radio, an extension cord for that handpiece, because you obviously will be mounting that unit out of the way. A couple of little pass-through adapters. I've got a different plan in mind for mine rather than using this, but we'll get to that shortly. And of course we have a little bracket for mounting that handpiece. And that's pretty much everything that comes in the box aside from a couple of little screws. Now I have bought a few more bits and pieces for this install, the first of which is this extreme mounting tape. Now this might fail on the first bit of corrugated roads that I drive on, but the idea with this is to use the tape to mount this control module underneath the center console. Not sure how long it's going to last, but I at least wanted to give it a go because it just feels so wrong drilling holes in the new car. Also to make this install nice and neat, I've bought a genuine GME UHF radio handpiece pass-through. This is one designed to suit the DMAX, so it's going to be a direct replacement for those blanks in the car, and it just means I can install this somewhere around the gear selector and then plug this handpiece directly into that, and it's just going to make for a nice factory, neat looking install. As for powering this radio, normally I'd run a UHF radio all the way back to the battery, but I've recently learned about these things called fuse taps. These things are so cool. So you basically find your factory fuse box under the dashboard, remove one of the fuses, plug this in instead, and then on top, we find two fuse slots. So you put your old fuse, the one you removed, goes in the first slot, and then that circuit is exactly as it was factory. And then we've got a second fuse slot on the outside there to run a new accessory. In this case, it's going to be the UHF radio. So very neat, and it means I don't have to run that extra set of wires all the way back to the battery. And the last piece of the puzzle is a custom bracket I made earlier today. It's just a bit of aluminium I've folded, cut to the right size, and then I've just given it a coat of black paint. So this is to mount the microphone piece in the cab, just to have it in the place that is nice and convenient and easy to access. Now, as for getting this all installed in the DMAX, I'm going to be taking 100% of my inspiration from Adam at Video Show Me How. He's got a DMAX just like mine, and he's done pretty much every modification you can think of to it and documented the whole procedure on his YouTube channel. So I'll link his videos in the description down below. He's the one that I learnt about these fuse taps from, and also this GME pass-through. So check out his videos if you have a DMAX, or even if not, his videos are top quality. Anyway, let's go get this install underway. Okay, here we are in the DMAX, and the first part of this install is going to be to get this main control box mounted. So location wise, where I'm planning to have this is underneath this center cup holder assembly. It's just held in by 4 clips, but they can be quite tight. There's no real nice and gentle way to do this, I've found. Like, I tried using these little panel removing tools, didn't really help too much. The only way is to kind of put a bit of force on it, but I find if I kind of grab this way, push down with my thumbs as I pull up with my fingers, you can kind of get that first side to come up like that, and then just kind of do the same on the other side, or in that case, it just came out by itself. Then we can remove that cup holder assembly, and we can see underneath there is actually a lot of room to mount lots of bits and pieces. I don't know why Isuzu didn't give us a bigger center console box thing, because there's actually heaps of room underneath. Anyway, so now I can get this mounted underneath and get installing that wiring. Okay, so I decided not to stick the unit in place just yet. I'm going to run all the wiring back, get it all in place before I commit to a final mounting position. If we move forward, you'll see I have popped the trim up around this gear selector, and that just gives us nice, easy access for our wiring. In front of the gear selector here, those are those blanks I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to pop probably this one here out and replace it with this GME pass-through. So that should be the exact same size and should be a direct replacement. To remove this, you basically just have to access the underneath, give those 2 tabs a squeeze, and then that blank will pop out the top, and we'll replace that with our GME pass-through. Our power wires will continue underneath the dash and go across to our fuse box here, and that's where we'll use our fuse taps to tap into one of these circuits. So now that the unit has power from that fuse box, we can actually test it out. And to do that, all we have to do is take the handpiece and plug the other end into that GME pass-through we installed earlier. There we go, the unit fires up and it looks like my wiring has been a success. So the next step is going to be to work out where I'm going to be mounting this handpiece in the cab. And for that, I have already taken the included GME mounting bracket and I've screwed it onto that custom bracket I made earlier. I then stuck the included 3M adhesive pad onto the back of my new bracket. I was going to use that new mounting tape I bought, but this is the stuff that GME actually includes in the kit for the purpose of mounting that handpiece, so I figured that's going to give it the most chance of success. So basically I've designed this bracket so that this angle here matches in with the angle of the dashboard there. So once it's stuck in place on that surface, it should hold my handpiece here, nice and out of the way of the air vent, the screen, and also those aircon controls. Next step is going to be to install my cute little antenna. So for that, there's 2 mounting points pre-installed on the bull bar. There's one here and one just here. I'm going to use this one just to keep it out of my driver's line of sight. And once it's installed, it's going to look a little something like this, which I reckon looks really, really neat. I've been told by Bianca that I must face this red GME logo towards the front, so that is priority number 1. I'll get this bolted in place and then I'll run this antenna cable probably through my grille into the engine bay. I'll then chase it along the side here nice and neatly, and then there's a grommet in the passenger firewall that I can poke it through into the cab. Before I put everything back together, I thought I might show you how all the cabling is run. So the antenna is entering through the firewall on the passenger footwell up there. There's a bit of a rubber grommet that it's kind of just poking through, which is good. Wire comes down, it goes underneath my vinyl flooring. Obviously this will all be a lot neater once I've finished. Continues and goes through into the center assembly. So from there, you're not going to be able to see this because it's all tucked away nice and neat. But basically the antenna wire comes through here, it's all tucked behind this nice and neatly, and then when it comes through to the cup holder assembly, I've actually hidden it beneath this heat-proof matting. It exits just here, and that's where it continues to the main unit, which is all stuck nice and firm up on the wall underneath this center assembly. So now I'm going to go back through, reinstall all my trim, and the install is finished. So I've left the adhesive on that microphone mount to bond overnight to give it the best chance of sticking long term, and everything's looking pretty good. Very happy with how neat it all is. That pass-through adapter gives the handpiece a really nice factory look, and powering the unit from the fuse box also worked a treat, and it meant we didn't have to run any extra wires to the battery. Another benefit to that pass-through adapter is that we can completely remove the microphone really easily and tuck it in the glove box when it's not in use. And that way the interior is kind of restored to its stock standard look, aside from that mounting bracket. But in saying that, I reckon a UHF radio looks pretty cool in the car, so I'll probably be leaving mine installed at all times. And where I position that bracket, it doesn't really get in the way of anything, which is great. The stubby antenna looks pretty neat on the bull bar too, super happy with how that's come up. And being a 2.1 decibel, it should transmit really well over short distances, even through hills and whatnot. But maybe not so good for long range, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys really soon for the next DMAX upgrade.